Hello, everyone. I'm so excited for this next episode of Breath of Life Conversations. Today, I have Miss Gabrielle Celeste. I am lucky enough to call her Gabby, and she is an amazing, amazing woman. She is an astrologer. She is a teacher. She's an inspirer. She is a sister. She is the owner of the one and only Agua Astrology, and she's just the one of the most batty intuitives that I've ever come across. And she's one that is just so incredible. And I cannot wait for you to hear where this conversation is going to go because, like so many of my other conversations lately, I don't know where it's going to go. So let's jump in.
Hello.
Oh my gosh, you're so beautiful.
Oh, look at who's talking. Okay. How are you doing? Happy Virgo season, Virgo queen. Happy eclipse season. Can't wait to hear all about
Oh,
it.
the eclipse season.
Hmm.
I think it is safe to say it has started off with a bang.
Oh, in a good way?
I feel like for me personally, it's been okay. It's
Hmm.
like I I really I should I'm you've inspired me because I feel like I don't pay too much attention to my life in its totality. I
Around
very
eclipses.
much like in general too.
Okay.
Like I don't like pay too much attention. I'm very like I try to stay very mo in the moment, and I know that for so many people that like sounds like me just being a regular intuitive, but really it's more of just like it's just laziness. It's I'm too lazy to like sit and be like, okay, what what do I want to have in? How do I want like, and to do all of the mental gymnastics, and I'm really unless it's something I really, really, really want. But I also don't take the time to go back and to look back and to see where I was. So when I read your stuff, I go, "Oh my gosh, how does she remember?" Like all of this stuff. Like she took the time to kind of like either mentally go back, or I don't know if you've got like things on your phone where you're like, major thing happened to me
You know,
on this day.
thank you for like just saying that and sharing the power of being in the now. I mean, I've been ranting about this book all over social media, and it's The Power of Now by, I'm gonna butcher his name, Eckhart Tolle. I think that's how you
Yes,
say
I
it.
love him. Yes, I have. I read it. It's
Like
amazing.
so good. And it's just like I think that's so important, especially as I mean, I've tended to future trip, and that's just because my soul prefers to be with the oneness. It prefers to be in the higher chakras, but I understand the importance of being in the lower three because that's how you get what you desire in order for it to come to you here in the present. But I think that there's just so much power in being present because you almost come from a place of gratitude. And I think it's harder to do that when you're constantly future tripping because you don't see the beauty in what you have in the present in the real time.
Yeah, for sure. Do you feel like that has been something that has been um something cultivated over the last like couple of months, couple of years, or do you feel like it just hit you recently? Because I know that you've been through you're okay, I'm gonna say this a couple of different ways. You've been through it. I know that. I know your story. We do not need to
Yeah.
like dive like deep into it. People, you will be back on the podcast. I mean, this is not the first time that you've done a conversation with me, but you will certainly be back. I know that for sure. So like we don't have to do a deep dive into your backstory, but people just know like she's
Yeah.
she's been through it. But also you've deliberately decided to go through it because you've been doing a very intense, very deliberate shamanic practice. Like you've
Mhm.
been studying with a shaman, you've been working with them, you've been learning from them, you've been diving deep into your own stuff. So I know you've been through it. I know you're going through it. Like, so I'm curious, is this like, is that perspective something that's just like I said, a cultivated thing, or is that a dude, no, because of my stuff? It's like
Well,
it's a recent revelation.
Abby, can I just say thank you for saying that and for reflecting that back to me? And I also just love that we're just like getting right to it. And that's just the comfort that we've established between one another and each other in our relationship and friendship. And yeah, I want to say that this last season, which coincidentally lines up with my shamanic apprenticeship, who's she's actually a therapist in her 3D life, but she's a retired therapist. So, since I've been working with her nonstop since December of 2024, but I would say I've been in this like shadow portal, if you will, and I feel like literally like within the last 48 hours, I'm kind of turning a corner, which is kind of interesting because this whole like new offering came up. Not that I'm here to pitch my offering, but it kind of just literally dropped in and I'm like, okay, this was a
Love it.
sign. Yeah, and but even before then, like I would say about this time last year and at time of recording, it's the end of August. I was just kind of like in this grief energy and I was in a personal year 9 and we're collectively going through a year 9 and I think we can all agree that year 9 energy isn't for the weak. But I would say that like this shadow work season has really actually brought me back to the now, to seeing the value of being in the present and to enjoying your life for what it is and not constantly being like, okay, when this happens, when that happens, because then it's never going to be good enough. And I've come to acknowledge that in this last season, one of my main takeaways is that like not enoughness is actually something within myself that has been a core wound that I never recognized up until really sitting with myself and the shadow work and having gone through this like really deep intensive round of shadow work. It's so interesting, Abby. I feel like I'm still myself, but I'm more of myself. I'm more of a whole person because I feel more whole within myself and because I created space from sitting in, my own oneness and in my darkness. And there's this thing that like I cheekily posted on Instagram the other day, and it was like signs of your second spiritual awakening. And I was like, mother effer, I didn't even know a second spiritual awakening was a thing. I didn't know when the first one was happening, but now, and I'm actually going to drop a couple of episodes on this in the next couple of weeks, in Virgo season actually, which is ironic, on my podcast. And I'm going to speak to just honestly like what the second spiritual awakening is and something. And I would love to know if you've kind of noticed this pattern within the industry, the community, if you will, is that a lot of intuitives don't even actually get to that point. And meaning like they don't really sit with their own shit. Like my eyes have been exposed to the greed in this industry, to really people being more about it, their money, than actually helping people, who are advising people, other healers, if you will, when they haven't even sat with their own shit, like, excuse my French. And so the rose colored glasses really came off in this last shadow work. And I just, I'm a Cancer sun. And so technically, knowing that part of astrology, you're ruled by the moon changes signs every 2 to 3 days. And um, because of that, my life looks different every 2 to 3 years, literally. And I knew that this round of shadow work was just necessary, and I didn't want to bypass it in any which way because I knew I was going to be a better intuitive and healer as a result.
Yeah, I think that the collective is in a really interesting place when it comes to who they're listening to and why. And when we're specifically talking about the coaching industry and that question that you asked of like, are they actively actually doing the work? And have they, or are they continuing to do the work? I full-heartedly believe that they're not, that there are so many that stop. And so when I think about where the collective is, it makes me really, really worried. And I do
Mhm.
try then to stay out of the worry. I try to be like, okay, everybody's on their path, everybody's on their journey. When I say stuff like that, the other part of me, like and this is I really feel like in another life I must have been a Gemini or something. I because the whole like back and forth, back and forth. And it probably just at the end of the day is the fact that I I've always kind of been on the in between, and I find it really, really hard to be like super set really kind of on anything. I kind of say, you know what, give me a good argument and I'm willing to change my mind. Like I'm
Yeah.
half black, half white. I'm bisexual. People know this. I feel like I've constantly been on the in between. I have a very practical sign. Like you said, I'm a Virgo, but I also have a very like dark and twisty sign as my Scorpio rising. Um and all of that, just settles very, very beautifully into a Pisces moon, which just is like, the emotions and the empathy and the intuitiveness is just is it's a massive gift. It's a massive gift. Sometimes it feels like a curse sometimes, but I say all that to say that I don't think that we are doing enough, and I don't think, and by we I mean the spiritual community. Like sometimes I just, or even to bring it broader, like outside of the spiritual community or the intuitive community, the coaching community, people are listening, and like you said, things change so frequently. Um, Sometimes that change is generationally, and I think sometimes it's the it's the speed at which the planet wants to move. I think we forget that the sentience of the planet also changes, and it is changing. And I think that there is one too many intuitive practitioners, guides, coaches, whatever, that basically say it's okay to just say, well, okay, I've nailed this aspect, so I don't need
Mhm.
to do anything more. So when you say that you've deliberately taken steps to make yourself better, and I fully understand that, like, it's not an easy road. It's a tough road. It's a tough road. And you've deliberately decided to expand yourself in that way. I
Mhm.
know that that is exactly what is needed. So desperately it's needed, just because it's okay, I'm gonna say the thing and I'm not even gonna care if I hurt people's feelings. I feel like people are becoming dumb. They're becoming dumb, and people are just they're listening, and they're so open to the distortions and the echoes and the things that do not belong to them, and they're so available to the programming. And I feel like I just went off on a very, very big tangent, and I'm so sorry.
No, I was picking up what you were putting down, and I want to just reflect back to you, um, two things that you said about yourself, and then the other point that I would love your just perspective on. So I just want to say I love that you're flexible and you're like, if you give me a good argument, I'm open to other perspectives because I feel like lack of rigidity in this space is so fucking necessary. It's so necessary because I mean, how else are you going to be open to other perspectives, other worlds, other dimensions, other thoughts, other ideologies? It's so, I think you do that so well and so beautifully. And in this season of me going through it, I pulled out, it's funny, my guides will literally, like, I have this, one of my bookshelves because I love reading, much like you, voracious readers over here. And it's color
Very much
coded.
so.
Yeah. And, you know, my guides have this funny way of like sending me books because I tend to live in my mental body, and it's like, Gab, you got to ground. Like you got to ground, you got to live into your emotional, your energetic, all the things. And so they put this book in front of me. It was like Karma and Astrology, and I opened it up, and it's like bibliomancy, right? And it said Virgo, Pisces, Scorpio have
I'm intrigued.
have the hardest. I don't really like using the word hard. Have the hardest karma to
Oh,
clear
for
out.
sure.
And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I thought of you instantly." So like when this all came together, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna make sure to speak to that." But I just wanted to share that piece for you with you. And the other piece too, it's like the whole importance of, so for me, the shamanic path looks, different for everyone, but what it's looked like for me, and I just also want to preface this and say I would never call myself a shaman. I would never call myself a shaman unless that title was bestowed to me upon elders or upon me by elders, and if I had really gone through, like some intense ceremonial practices that I think are part of walking that path. Um, but for me, what it's looked like has been insane shadow work. Like there's been moments where I was just like I couldn't even see straight because I wasn't there, but I knew that it was me sitting in my own darkness. And, now I've definitely integrated that and I understand myself a lot better. And I see like, oh, like this is what it means to be more of a whole version of yourself. And like the byproduct of that is that you become more psychic, you become more, skilled. And that is, I think, what is a big part of the second spiritual awakening that a lot of intuitives don't even, go through. Maybe they're not meant to. But one thing I've noticed in our community in this space is that and you know what? We're not subscriptions, so that they can't cancel us. But my thought on this is like, oh, I've kind of, and I'm not shit talking this because I grew up Catholic. I respect the ideologies of the church, the Catholic Church specifically, Christianity. But I've noticed that a lot of people, once the going, or what is it phrase, like a going gets tough,
Yeah, the tough get going.
that yeah, like they kind of run to Christianity because they're not taking accountability for their own work. And
Yeah.
that's been like a thing in this space. And I was like, oh shit, like my eyes are kind of open to it. And I had a girlfriend, you might know her, but she had come on. No, I think I read for her back in May. She's supposed to come on the podcast soon. And but yeah, she had mentioned that she's noticed a lot of healers, psychics, intuitives in the space run towards that, and they kind of just made like a full 360 switch. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I feel like because truthfully we talk about how the space has a lot of individuals who are in it, but if we're being very honest, like there's not actually a whole lot of intuitives in the space, like not really. I think about the ones that actually create impact and matter, and I feel like whenever there's a really hard moment happening in the world, gosh, I feel like this particular episode, people are gonna be like, Abigail, you're such a bitch. It's like
Yeah.
talking against people. I don't mean to, guys, I promise. But the intuitives who have really made a name for themselves and who are standing at kind of at what we would consider the forefront of the industry, end up during those hard times, like you said, when they don't take accountability of their own advancement, their own up leveling, and really owning their own crap, they end up having to make that because that's the only way that they'll survive. So the first person who comes to my mind is the Doreen Virtue. Right,
Yep.
right.
Yep.
Like full on
Mm-hmm.
creates a bunch of decks, creates books, creates a whole compendium, a whole legacy, really. I mean, people in this space still talk about her. And then, I wish I knew the actual like timing frame, like what was happening in the world that she just did. Like you said, a complete like 180, like it's flipped completely, uh disavowed all of her work, disavowed everything, took her books and her cards off the shelves. You can't even find them now unless you find them secondhand, somebody else selling them. Um, you just can't find, or if you get lucky in some weird like back bookstore or something like that where there's a bin or something like
Mm-hmm.
you can't find her work in the intuitive space anywhere because
Mm-hmm.
she's completely said I was completely wrong, and she turned to Christianity and said
Yeah.
that she became a born again Christian and everything. And I agree with you. I think that we all need to take accountability. There's a definite need in this industry to take accountability, and I think the reason for that is because there is such a fine line between being psychic and being psychotic.
Facts. Could not have said that better myself. And I've truly had the exact same thought multiple times over these last 9 months. So I hear you. I agree with you.
I do have a question for you because you brought up, for you, it's been really finding a space to be present, to be in your kind of lower body, in your physical. And it reminded me of something that you had said. It's something that you posted on your stories, I think. Guys, if you don't follow this
Oh,
lady on social media, you need to.
yeah.
And we'll have all the things obviously down in the show notes. But um what you had said was I think you had posted, maybe it was a Taylor Swift, Travis Kelsey thing, or maybe it was a something from one of your clients saying that they had resonated with one of your readings and something had
Mm-hmm.
like come up, and you had said that you were going away from predictions in
Mm.
your readings, and I almost immediately I was like like my hand, like in my hand. I was like, I almost messaged you. And I was like, hold on, wait, save it, save it. And I'm just glad that it like naturally kind of came up here
Yeah.
because I'm fascinated. And is
Yeah.
it because of this wanting to be more grounded, more present in the now? Is that where that's kind of coming from? Because
Yeah.
guys, preface, she's really good at predictions. She's very, very, very good. I have gone on record. I've gone on record saying that I do not do predictions.
Yeah.
I don't like them. I think that there's too many factors and stuff. And I think part of the underlying thing for me is that I believe that people who are on a path that doesn't serve them or isn't in their maybe not doesn't serve them, because I think ultimately everything serves somebody, good or bad, but if it's not their highest timeline, that they'll figure that out and they'll switch it. And that hopefully that through my guidance or somebody
Mhm.
else's guidance, they'll do that. And so I always feel like if I predict something, my hope is always that if it's not positive, that they'll do something to change it. And if they do something to change it, then my prediction is going to be wrong, and I really just don't like being wrong. so so so, I think maybe that's why I have such an aversion to predictions. But you guys, one of the things about Gabby is that she doesn't have that necessarily. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Gabby, but you don't seem to have that same hang up. And so people can come to you and they can ask you questions, sometimes quite far into the future. And you have found that you've been very, very accurate.
Mm.
And I'm intensely interested. Why the shift?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking that. Thank you for reflecting that back to me. That's so nice. And also, I just have so much respect for you for the work that you do, for the integrity that you bring to the table. Because, like I said, like when we started this conversation, so much of the rose-colored glasses came off for me in this season of shadow work. And I think one of the things that I learned about myself, and I'd love to know if this is the same for you, but so much of my work, my readings, my how I read has been from my own experience in terms of receiving readings, what I feel is valuable in terms of how to conduct a reading, and also through my own process. So, prior to going through a lot of the shadow work, I lived in my like upper 3, upper 4, right? And now coming back down to the lower 3, which in my opinion, the lower 3 are probably the most challenging to work with because and it's easier to be in the upper 4, and the upper 4 come, I think it's very soul specific. It's like bio individuality, if you will.
Mm,
And I think some people do incarnate maybe a little bit more sensitive than others, and I wouldn't say that about myself. I just I think my soul just prefers to be in the upper 4, if you will. But now understanding the richness, the value, the just like what the lower 3 can offer you, I've just kind of come back to that in my own readings and just been like, hey, and this is actually something that I'm kind of working with and grounding it into an offering, Abby, is what I recognize is, so I'm a double Pisces, and Pisces have this gift, you being the Pisces moon that you are as well. We have this gift of being able to see people's subconscious limiting beliefs or their subconscious in general that they may not be aware of, right? And what I came to find in my readings is like, oh, this was a gift. Like, this is the timeline for someone's greatest and highest good if this is on track to what they're doing based on when they're at where they're at right now, right? And so now, having gone through the process of lowering or focusing on my lower 3, what I came to realize, I was like, oh, this is like C, but they need to take steps A plus B to get to C. And the A plus B are all related to the lower 3 chakras. So it's kind of like taking a step back before you can get to the gift at the end, even though I know what the gift is for them. I'm just going to be like, hey, listen, like this is kind of what's preventing you from getting to where you want to be. So, not that I'm not ever going to focus on it again. I just don't think it's like of as much importance for me right now as maybe
mm,
it was. And I'm very grateful for that season. And again, like I think it's just a timing thing and if reflective of where I'm at in my process. But I think that uh, there's so much happening right now and the timelines are changing so quickly, and I've lived that experience. I had a reading at the beginning of the year from a couple of just like I think some of the best in the game, and what's ironic is that and not to say that they weren't accurate, because there were definitely parts of those readings that were super accurate, but I changed so many timelines because I went into the lower three, that it turns out that like my reading that I gave for myself when I sat with my guides, my higher self, has come to be the most accurate. And so I'm grateful for focusing on predictions for as long as I did, because it gave me the base and the foundation, the clientele within my business. And now I'm kind of looking to go into that next layer of doing the work with my very loyal, you know, clientele base, and helping them take their intuitive practices and their gifts to the next level by way of me kind of doing it first and figuring out how I can best support them.
And I feel like the best of us do that, where
Oh,
we lead
yeah.
ourselves first. And I think you bring up such a great point that, the future is all great, and all of that is beautiful and wonderful. And to foresee something spectacular happening is wonderful, but we don't live in a galaxy that has the laws of we can just think something and there it is plopped onto in front of us on a silver platter.
Mhm.
We have to actually perform actions in order to get that nice big shiny gift at the
Mhm.
end. And
Mhm.
so I very much hear you and understand, and I resonated with it a lot because even though like I said, I wouldn't call myself a predictor in any way, what you just were describing about how you want to lead your clients is exactly how I have felt like that's the kind of conversations that I have with my clients of like, I'm not going to sit and try to tell you what your future is usually how I preface preface things, but I will be like, I have an energetic prescription, do these things and you're going to find yourself in a much better space than you ever thought possible. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, how you want to envision that, go for it. And if you're one of those people who believes that if that no matter what sort of the envisioning that you can do for yourself, God, angels, universe are always going to create something far better and that's going to exceed your expectations, well, then great. Either way, it works out. But the actions are the things that are really super important. I am I'm so intensely happy for the people who are in your world because I
Mm.
think I know how good you were
Mm.
then then right
Mm.
in that season. I know that people are going to be just so blown away by any and all changes that you end up making to your offerings and like how you approach stuff with them. I'm really excited for my next reading with you because
Yeah.
I've gotten a reading from you when you were in that like season so yeah, I just think it's a really interesting shift, but I don't think that it's a shift that takes you away from who you are. I think
Yeah.
that's like one of the coolest, most important parts is that it's just a deeper version of who you are as a reader and as a guide and as a mentor and as an impact. I think that ultimately what you are is an impact for people and
You make me
allowing for
cry.
them. Don't worry, it's just the cancer in you.
It's the cancer for sure. It's all the water.
um there's another question that that was it. Another and now I want to talk about flexibility from a completely like different aspect. So we talked
Yeah.
about like you shifting and you having flexibility, but um I'm interested in because you have said that one of the things that's so important to you and one of the things that you believe in is having the ability to move into a higher space, right? To challenge yourself, to exceed your own expectations and become a better person, to become a better reader and guide and all of those things, right? And that's why you're kind of like putting yourself through this intense shamanic journey that you're going through apprenticeship. I'm interested in how you feel about astrology going through this because I would say that of kind of all of the different modalities
Mhm.
that one could start and or enter into, astrology is one of the most fixed
Yeah.
that exists out there. I think if we're talking about just broad spirituality or spirituality or intuitiveness, you can see, there's the ability to see a lot of motion inside of it,
Yes.
right? A lot of expansion.
Hmm.
But as we know, because there's been a lot of talk about how, if we expand astrology,
Hmm.
um and do something radical, like, I don't know, add another constellation, or that could
Hmm.
be another sign, or nobody's ever talked about adding another house or whatever, but I could see that also like being a thing that somebody talks about, and that would like blow the thing. And I know that you and I have had sort of a conversation about it, of like how you feel about adding in. One of the things that you had said, if I can remember correctly, I'm going to paraphrase it, but that, one of the things that you've so enjoyed about astrology is the fact that it can be relied upon,
Yeah.
and that, as it is how it is. And that was how you learned, and that's how you continue to practice. And I'm just curious, has that perspective shifted at all? Are you willing to kind of throw yourself into the forefront of saying, I'm going to be a kind of, I don't know if new age astrologer is necessarily the right title. I don't want to place any title on it at all, but
Yeah.
like, would you be willing to kind of stand at the front and kind of be the one that goes first in that area, saying, you know what, the sky is the sky is also expanding, as physics would tell us that, the
Yeah.
sky is expanding, and so there too should astrology.
So, okay, I'm like, you must be psychic because the way that you started that question, I was like, oh, she must be tapping into how I'm starting to like apply astrology, right? And then the second part, we did talk about that the last time we chatted. And it's so interesting too, because I feel like this conversation is just so divinely timed. Yesterday, I was watching, I don't know if it was a news channel, if it was on the Tickety Talk or something, but the source was news reference. And of course, like fact check all of your sources now
Yes.
because that's necessary if you're listening to this. But it was saying something to the effect of NASA has acknowledging that planet Earth is rotating more quickly. Like time is
Yes.
basically moving more quickly than ever before. And we had like one of the shortest days in the existence of humanity most recently. So honestly, like I think if I knew more about it, I would be comfortable being at the like forefront of that
Mm,
conversation. But I think that that's something that could totally be a possibility based off of the information that NASA just shared. So I think anything is
mm,
possible.
yeah.
To the second part of that question, it's interesting because astrology was my first love. Like it's like
Mhm.
my OG. It is a system that like is the foundation for other systems like human design, and it just makes sense. It just works, like it's being used for time and time again over like centuries, over thousands of years. Like back in ancient China, you couldn't even get married if the birth chart wasn't approved by the
Right.
husband's, the groom's family, right? And they would like kings and queens, and I'm so like on eclipse season right now because that's like where we're at. Kings used to be beheaded on eclipses. So like just like when you start studying like the parallels, then you acknowledge like the synchronicities and all of that. It's like it's just something that's undeniable. But it's interesting because I have a very I'm fours across the board in all of my numerology. So I'm very like structured and more rigid than I would like to be. But again, going through this season of shadow work, I've definitely softened. And in that softening process, I'm like more emotional. I feel more of my feelings because I've allowed myself to. But the way that that's mirrored into my business is that I actually read from more of a feminine place. So the readings are very, I guess, soft, if you will. And using astrology and bringing that into my world is I am starting to look now at the shadow placements of, say, like you have a Venus in Cancer. Well, the shadow placement of that is Capricorn energy because you're going to look at the sister sign and you're going to look at what, like, maybe the shadow of that is. So I'm incorporating more of that into my readings and approach. So yeah, I feel like the first part of your question kind of leaned into that.
I love that, and I think that that's something that is going to really open a lot of people's eyes about who they are. And one of the things that I find so brilliant about modalities like astrology is that it has this ability to tell you who you are. But I
Mhm.
think, like you said, so many people want to go for just the bright and shiny of who they are, right? But the real work starts when you are like, I'm ready to dig. I'm ready to dig
Mhm.
down. I'm ready to find those places in me that are maybe not so nice, not so pretty, and shed some light on them and allow for them to heal and allow for them to be integrated fully into who I am so that I can be the best version of myself possible. And so the fact that you have found a way to help people recognize that through their birth charts is absolutely phenomenal, because I think a lot of people don't, well, not even a lot of people, like I certainly, that's the first time I've ever heard of somebody, anyone, an astrologer, anyone saying that there is a way to look at that chart and actually find the places that should be worked on, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term, that will allow you to actually see more than just saying, oh, well, as a Virgo, that means that I'm a perfectionist and that I'm detail oriented.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
great.
Surface level, yeah.
But,
Mhm.
right, exactly what you're saying, surface level.
Mhm.
And I think that this sort of understanding of the chart will allow for people to become better readers as well, and
Yeah.
understanding that it can go deeper, like for as many things as we already know about astrology and about who we are as people. I think people get bored easily,
Yeah.
so now giving
Yeah.
them something else to say, oh, you know what, I thought I knew what astrology was. I thought I knew
Mhm.
what it could do. I thought I had dug into it as much as I possibly could. Well, now check yourself, people.
Yeah. It-
So,
it's so funny. Like, and thank you for saying that. This conversation's been such a gift and confirmation that like where I'm going now in my business, that of course is going to take time to build that next tier, if you will. That I'm on path for what I'm doing because I get a lot of like, or at least I used to, maybe not so much in the my current stage of business, but my ideal client avatar is actually other healers. And once you open up these doors, you acknowledge, you get close to the divinity with that's already within yourself. There's like levels, like you open the doors and you just keep going and you think you're done, but you're not. And if I can help other intuitives acknowledge what their like threshold where they're at right now currently is, and like how to get to the next place on an intuitive energetic level, I just would be thrilled. And my first time clients, I used to get a lot of them, and right now I'm not so much, is what I was also saying, is that it's interesting. They have this idea of what like a reading's going to be. It's like, how is it going to turn out with like me and like Tom or whatever? And then they get an idea of like what the reading actually is and like what's going on within their energetic bodies. And then they're like, oh shit, like this is what healing is. And then kind of the doors are open to the never ending rabbit hole.
yes. And that I think is the beauty, right, of like of any reading, really. If you're, and I should say, preface this by saying if you are working with a good intuitive, because as we know, there are, snakes in the weeds of any industry out there. And people who just aren't very good at what they do. But when you're working with somebody who is good and or great at what they do,
Mhm.
you go in thinking that you have some sort of an idea. You have some intention set. But the fact is that God, creator, universe brought you to that person to give you a gift, and that gift is not fulfilling your expectations. In fact, it's blowing your world apart in the best way
Mhm.
possible. It's gonna
Mhm.
hurt, probably a little bit,
Mhm.
at least,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
it's maybe gonna turn your whole world around. Going, wait, what I thought I was gonna do. Hold on, that's not. And I just had that done recently for myself, where I thought, you know what, I had been working towards something, and I thought that the reason why I was not able to fully go through with the whole thing and really show up on that path was because I was missing something. I thought that there was something in me that I wasn't thinking about, or I wasn't acknowledging, or whatever. And comes to find out, the reason why is because everything was blocking me energetically. There's nothing physically in front of me that was stopping me from doing what I needed to do to pursue the thing. But it was essentially just there is no way for me to go down that route because that's not where I was supposed to be. And had I not had a reading where that was being told to me of like, actually, where you're supposed to be going is over here. I feel like this is actually what you need to be doing. This is how you actually create the impact and change in the industry that you want. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it does feel so much more aligned and so much better than I could ever imagine. So
Mm-hmm.
that has been just a gift.
No, I love that for you, Abby. And it's so funny how like we think things are gonna go one way and then it's almost like the universe is like, I'm gonna do you one better. And it's such a better situation than you could have even imagined or asked for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I understand.
My love, this has been incredible. It went by
I
so
know. I
fast.
know.
Feel like I need to like sometimes I feel like I need to increase the amount of time that I like put these for. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, if I do that, I'm just gonna spend 2 hours on and I sometimes I will admit I am like intensely jealous of the people who have audiences who are like, I will absolutely sit and listen to this conversation for 2 whole hours. It's like, I don't even sit and do that. Man, like there are a handful of individual, handful, like on one hand, I could count them, and you are definitely one of them that I would sit and I would talk to for hours, and I'm
Yeah,
like
agree.
intensely angry with the universe for putting you so far away from me that I can't just like go out my door,
I
walk down the street,
know.
and say, "Let's get a coffee."
I
Um,
know.
but will you please tell us how we can follow you, work with you, get into your world, stalk you? No, I'm kidding. But no, really, tell us like how we can.
Aw. Yes, thank you so much. I loved our conversation. This was a gift, as I've said, and there was so much in it for me as well that I'm just so grateful to have received. You can find me at Agua Astrology, and I co-host a podcast with my siblings that's called the Spiritual Sisters Podcast. My website is www.aguaastrology.com. I'm also on Etsy under the same handle, Agua Astrology, and I am going to be having another offering come out soon that is I have a low tier, I have a high tier, and girl was missing the middle tier. So the middle tier is dropping in very early September. And that'll be available during my website or on my website as well.
Beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me on this amazing conversation. Guys, I will have all of Gabby's stuff down in the show notes below. Please check her out, follow her, love on her. She's amazing. And we will see you next time on the next Breath of Life Conversations. Bye, y'all.